I referred at the outset to the absence of Jack O'Connor, who's burying his father-in-law this morning. But Jack was insistent that there would be a strong trade union presence today, which there has been. And he wrote to all SIPTU staff, "The same forces that are attacking our movement on a daily basis have also decided to continue the attack on Bob and death as well as life. The Irish Independent carried a column wholly devoted to a scurrilous attack on Bob Doyle, in which next Saturday's memorial procession is specifically denounced. A fitting response, therefore, would be the maximum presence in that procession, complete with banners, and you indeed have come with that maximum presence." I'm wearing many hats today. One of the hat was welcoming you here on behalf of the union. The other hat is as an executive member for Ireland of the International Brigade Memorial Trust. But the other hat is, of course, in loco parentis, in place of my late father, with whom Bob had that slow bicycle race as to who would be the last brigadista fighter who would go down in the record book. And when I spoke at Bob's book launch a month after my father's death, I quite appropriately introduced myself as the son of the runner-up. But that is in fact how we remember Bob. We remember Bob with the laughs that we shared. I first met Bob myself back in 1986, but of course my father knew him from the time of Spain itself. But when we came back from the unveiling of the first official memorial post-Franco in Madrid, in Barcelona in 1988, Bob came over to Dublin afterwards on the occasion of my father's birthday. Appropriately enough, they both having had served time in different places, we had first gone to see Brendan Bean's Borstal Boy. But we came back and Bob good-manneredly asked my father, "How old are you?" "Anyhow, Mick," and he says, "Mind your own business." And that was the nature of the banter and the relationship between them. So we remember Bob as a human being and a continuous fighter to the very end. We also remember that the attacks he had right throughout his life, even to his very death. And I remember when the same columnist attacked my father after the International Brigade Memorial Trust held its AGM here, and it was responded to very eloquently by Jack Jones. Despite being used all your life to it, you were actually upset by the cowardly character of that attack. A person who waits until somebody is almost dead or is dead to have that vicious attack. And I was quite honestly somewhat depressed about it last Sunday when I was travelling up to Belfast on a snowy winter's morning, and it was a dark morning, and we were driving past Newry, and then I noticed a road sign which immediately evoked the name of one of the families of the Irish brigadistas. It said, "No left turn, no right turn at Jordan's Hill." Now, it is most gratifying that, in fact, the families of so many international brigaders have travelled far and wide to be present here today. Quite apart from the O'Riordan family, we have Peter O'Connor's daughter Tina, who came from Wexford, Jerry Doran's daughters Anne and Geraldine, who came over from Glasgow. Other families represented are the families of Sean Edwards, of Frank Edwards in the person of Sean Edwards. And indeed, somebody who's done us proud on both stage and screen internationally. Fionnuala Flanagan is here in memory of her own International Brigade father, Terry Flanagan. So I think it is important that we recognise the presence of families, and how, in fact, the International Brigade Memorial Trust is in many ways one large family. And also present here is the granddaughter of one of the Spanish Republican exiles who fought in the Battle of the Ebro and came back to live in Spain after the defeat, the effective triumph of democracy over Franco. Caterina Garcia, who is in Trinity College here and might sing for us later. I will also mention one more family because it is a fitting answer to what Kevin Myers had written. He had sought to exploit, in his condemnation of what Bob stood for, he had sought to exploit the Irish dead, including the Irish dead of the Soviet Gulag. And one of those dead of the Irish Gulag was Patrick Breslin, who was a founder member of the Communist Party of Ireland, went to the Soviet Union, was unjustly charged but for what his family can be proud of, maintained his innocence to the very end. Bob, as a prisoner who had suffered at the hands of fascist imprisonment, would have had nothing but admiration for a man who had devoted his life to the Soviet Union and rightly maintained his innocence of any anti-Soviet activities and perished in that. And it is a tribute to, in fact, how the horizons of people who are present here today and are inspired by Bob today, that Patrick Breslin's daughter and granddaughter are here to honour Bob Doyle in spite of the likes of Kevin Myers. Needless to say, the Irish Independent published that attack on Bob and did not allow me a right of reply. But when we remember the hallowed ground where we are at present, this is Liberty Hall. This is where the 1916 proclamation was printed. This is where the leaders of the Rising met in order to effect the Rising in 1916. This is where the statue beyond of James Connolly was unveiled in the presence of Bob Doyle and fellow brigadistas. When we remember that Kevin Myers was published a paper that actually called for Connolly's execution, we can say to Bob, by Christ, you're in good company. I will just quote the two short paragraphs that the Independent refused to publish from me. I refer to the column of vituperation directed against the late Bob Doyle by Kevin Myers. As an Irish Republican volunteer, Bob confronted the blue shirt menace in Ireland, fought courageously against international fascism on the battlefields of Spain, and enlisted in the British Merchant Navy for World War II. Having faced down far more substantial foes, from the Spanish fascist guards who regularly and viciously beat him with clubs, to the Nazi German Gestapo who interrogated him in the concentration camp where he had been incarcerated for a year, Bob would have nothing but contempt for the journalistic courage of such a kick him when he has just died column, rushed into print before his family even had a chance to conduct his funeral service. Bob was indeed honoured by the elected head of state of this republic, not only by President McAleese in 2005, for which he has now been twice denounced by Mr. Myers, but also by President Robinson in 1996. But it was the honour bestowed upon him by the Spanish democracy that particularly warmed his heart. In 1996, the Spanish Parliament unanimously voted across party lines to grant the right of Spanish citizenship to Bob and his fellow International Brigade volunteers. Bob's ultimate vindication was indeed the verdict of the Spanish people themselves. And it is in line with that when I spoke at the launch of the Spanish version of Bob's memoirs, Un Rebelde Sin Pausa, in Madrid in 2002, I recited a poem by Rafael Alberti which spoke about land and sea, and Bob had of course combated fascism both on land in Spain and in the British Merchant Navy at sea during the Second World War. And I quoted that in Spanish, that poem, and my own Irish language translation, followed by an English language translation, and I will now finish with that. Si mi boat muriera en tierra, llevadla libel del mar, y dejadla en la ribera. Llevadla libel del mar y nabradla capitana de un gran becal de guerra. O mi boat condecorada con la insignia marinera, sobre el corazón un ancla y sobre el ancla una estrella, y sobre la estrella el viento, y sobre el viento la vela. Main magos a bosser halav ber sias e Connemara agus fog a dra. Ber sias e Connemara gunach fog for balav marv mas captain long choggy von. O biach magos a gleiste le suuntish farnelig, la hankrum o crisig os a cangal relt, as an ardoig she the guia, fwil on shoil magog ganig. If my voice should die on earth, it's from the sea it may be heard. It's from the sea it may be heard, if you leave it on the shore. So take my voice down to the sea, that a captain it may be, that a captain it may be, of a white ship of war. Oh, let my voice be decorated with the emblems of a sailor, with an anchor from the heart, that anchor reaching for a star, and from that star the wind will rise, with wind to say, my undying voice. Bob Doyle's voice is indeed living with us. Thank you.